This video is about my attempt to redeem myself in a small way. You see, this right here is a picture of my wife, and she agreed to let me try drawing a portrait of her last year. It was the first portrait that I'd ever drawn of anybody, and this is what I drew. It doesn't look like her, and it's not a very flattering portrait of anybody, and so I wanted to try and do better. I wanted to do a proper portrait of her. So this year, after having developed some more skills, taking a different drawing course, I attempted to start over from scratch and do another profile portrait of my wife. Now, I started with this blocking in phase, and this is something I learned from the Vitruvian Studio drawing course. I took their basic drawing course, and then I took their portrait drawing course, and this is the third portrait that I've attempted using the methods that are taught in that course. Now, one of the key things that they teach in that course is this technique of triangulation, and I think right off the bat that is a technique that has helped me to get proportions much more accurate than when I had tried before just using the drawing on the right side of the brain technique. Triangulation helps me to get the important junctures on the portrait correct. Things like where the top of the nose meets the forehead, where the lips are in proportion to the end of the nose, just all these little intersections and junctions, like how high are the eyes in relation to the chin and all that kind of stuff. You can triangulate all that out, and then once you get that triangulation basically correct, things start to fit together in a way where it builds on itself. And so if you get some of the key points right, and then the relationships between those key points right, then you're going to get the proportions more correct. And after that, there's just a lot of time you have to spend getting the tones right, getting the shading and the modeling of the form correct. And from what I understand from the technique and from what I remember, at least trying to implement it here, you start with the darkest darks, and then you go to the lightest lights, and you try to get those laid in across the portrait, and then from there you can start working towards the middle values, going from dark into light and going from light into dark until you eventually arrive at some points in the paper where it's just regular paper value without anything on it. But it's hard to know from the beginning where those just regular paper values are going to be, and so you have to work up to them. And one thing that I'm learning as I go through these exercises of practicing the technique again and again is that it really does require a lot of time. If you want to get the modeling of this three-dimensional form correct, you just have to spend a lot of time making a lot of very gradual shifts from light to dark and from dark to light to sort of mold those forms. And you have to go back and make corrections and check things and sometimes undo things and redo things. David Jameson, who teaches the course that I learned this portrait drawing technique from, you can see as he demonstrates it just how much time and how much painstaking effort he puts into getting absolutely everything right. And I think I probably spent less time on this portrait than he spent on the portraits that he does when he demonstrates the technique. And I think maybe that's one of the big dividing lines between a master and somebody who is more amateurish, is that he's willing to put in that time and he's willing to redo things and undo things until he gets it up to the standard that he demands of himself. Now, this portrait honestly took me months. This is really sped up, but this is, many sessions over many different days, early mornings and late nights. And this is what I ended up with, because eventually I decided I needed to call it good because I didn't have it in me to work on it anymore. But in the end, I think this is a much better product than the last time that I attempted such a thing. So again, that's the picture of my wife, and that's the photo of her, and then going back to the portrait that I drew the first time that I attempted, and you can see it's gotten better than it was. There's still room for improvement here. This doesn't look as lifelike as a photo, but I think it's recognizably her, which is encouraging to me. I feel like this is real progress, and that makes me want to keep doing it. And I hope this is helpful and useful for you. If you have thoughts or questions, put them in the comments. And anyway, thanks for watching and take care.